Hello and welcome. My name is Amy if you're new here, and whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thank you for being here with me. I came to sit on the floor for just a second and my pup here adjusted so that he could snuggle with me. So I thought, all right, I have to stay here and just sit here and do this. I know there are probably a lot of other animal lovers and he is in these a lot, but he is just like, he's my guy. I am feeling like I need to talk about forgiveness today. I mean, honestly, the reason why is because of how significant it has been for me in my own healing and personal growth. And as some of my experiences deepen in certain ways, I realize how much more impactful that has been than I even really realized. I'm not going to get too into like detail aside from just like my understanding of what's actually helped me find forgiveness. And it was more about being able to shift in my mind how I was viewing it. Because I think that a lot of us feel like forgiving somebody means what they did was okay. That's the same with ourselves. Okay, so forgiveness is just as important with ourselves as it is for others. And I actually kind of think that until we can learn how to forgive ourselves, then we are not going to be able to forgive others. Ultimately, we can't really do one more than the other. If we're totally not willing to forgive others, we're going to have a hard time forgiving ourselves. And I think that comes down to the fact that perhaps we don't understand what it's really about. And from what I have experienced, forgiveness is not about saying what somebody else did is okay. It is about us not suffering anymore. So let's say somebody did something very bad, I'm going to say to me, because it's going to be easier for me to explain it. And I have had an experience in my life where I feel like I've had to forgive somebody over and over and over and over, quietly within myself. They don't know. And for me, the forgiveness is not that what they did is okay now. The forgiveness is that I don't want to feel the pain that it has brought me. And so I have had to do a lot of work, like cycling back to it over and over and over to be able to deepen this concept of the forgiveness, because I'll be like, all right, I did it. I'm here. But then 6 months or a year later, or however long, I'll notice these feelings start to creep up again and feel like, wow, I feel really angry or frustrated about this. And then I have to go through this whole other like cycle of a new perspective of forgiveness for this person. And it's not about the other person. When we forgive people, we're not even telling the other party involved most of the time. It is an experience that we have with ourselves. This might still mean not talking to a person if what they did is so terrible. This might mean learning what new boundaries look like, because your part in any kind of experience is making sure that you are respecting yourself and showing people how you want to be treated. And so perhaps you weren't able to do that at the time for a variety of reasons. But now as an adult, your responsibility for yourself is to actually set boundaries and show people how you want to be treated. This is so very important. And so this just comes back to this idea of like, it's one thing to say, I just can't have this person in my life anymore. It's one thing to set these boundaries, or perhaps this person is family and you see them and there's nothing you can do about that. But it's really about you recognizing where your thoughts, where your mind, your heart go when you feel that feeling of like starting to bubble in you when you're having a hard time with the forgiveness. The other people involved don't even know. They're not having the same experience as you, even if they do know that you're having a hard time with this. The suffering that comes from not being able to forgive is only living in you. And so by having and applying this forgiveness, which can be so hard at first, it really is about clearing your energy field. It's when those feelings start to come up again, being conscious of it. And no, there's no one here. Thank you for keeping us safe. Can you lay down again? Please lay down with me. Sorry for the interruption. His job assigned by himself is to keep us safe, especially from the UPS man. The thing is that it's very much about being conscious of your thoughts and when the feelings around this come up, and maybe even saying, I don't know if I buy this because this person did me wrong, and if I forgive them, then I am making it okay what they did. Maybe you just try this for a day. Maybe you just try it for the next time you notice these feelings bubbling up in you. Because just being like, maybe just this one time, I'm gonna see if this feels any different. And one of the biggest things that has helped me in the last year, because I've had a lot of this come up for me with this same situation, I read in a book, I think I was listening to it, and it was about personal spiritual growth. They said, stop thinking about it. Stop giving it attention. And I was like, man, that's like really cutthroat. But I was like, all right, I'm going to try that, because I have done so much work around this one situation in my life. And this summer, some of these feelings really came up strongly in me. And I just felt like, I felt really blindsided by it, to be honest, because it was so intense. And I heard this and I thought, let me just try this. Every time I started to get these feelings coming up in me, I would have a few different topics in my head or affirmations that I would shift into until my awareness was no longer on this really bad feeling. Honestly, this is working for me. It is working. And now, this is not to say that just by doing this, it's just going to be fixed, because there are situations where you need to communicate with a person and you can't just forget about it and stop thinking about it. There are times where communication is very important, but if you've done the communicating, if it's necessary, and you have done whatever kind of personal work you've needed to do, and you're still having these feelings, just try, when your attention goes to this and the feelings in your body, just try to shift them to something that feels better. It is simple, but it is not easy. But honestly, for me, after years and years and years and years, this has been going on for a long time, I feel more at peace around this than I have ever, even when I still think about it. And I think it has to do with the amount of work I've done up until this, but then also this moment of being like, yeah, like, what if these thoughts that come up are kind of like a repeated pattern of thought, and that by just interrupting them, I can make them go away. And that so far is what has been happening. And this comes back to the idea that we just continue to recycle the same, like 90% of our thoughts every single day. And so I don't need to completely forget this situation. I don't need to feel fully safe if I was in a situation like this again with the person. But in my everyday life and how I'm going about things, I don't need to feel suffering anymore, because I'm attached to being unable to forgive, because I'm attached to the recycled thoughts going over and over, or the pain, or whatever it is that happens for you. I don't need to be attached to what happens in my nervous system when it comes up and then allowing that to just continue to spiral and go out of control. I can simply recognize it and say, me, my consciousness, my higher self, I am going to be aware of this, and I am going to choose to observe it and move on to something else. You can be there, but I'm not going to bring you with me. I'll see you later. And you know what? It's really working for me. And this is just my one example that I'm giving you on what has probably been the most significant opportunity for me to forgive. But I will say that, as you saw in one of my last videos, as somebody who is sober, a huge part of the initial work in that is actually forgiving yourself and others. I think it probably started with forgiving myself for lack of self-respect, lack of boundaries, lack of being able to stand up for myself. I mean, so many things, so much I have had just so much shame around. And by slowly being able to simply look at it and then forgive myself, and that includes not allowing that shame to just continue to play over and over in my head, and also knowing that in the future I am going to show up with integrity and from a place that I'm going to be proud of. And by actually saying I was going to do this and then doing it and starting to trust myself more, I have gotten so far from the feeling of needing to forgive myself anymore, because my behaviors have shifted so much since then that that's just no longer my reality. And it's also made it easier with other people. Really, truly, if you're really struggling with having a hard time forgiving, maybe just start by writing down the things that you can't forgive. And it's so powerful. It's so annoying when people say just journal or write, but honestly, it's been huge for me, because you're kind of like taking it out of you and lessening the burden of it. And so just write it down and then be able to learn, if I were to do this situation over again, how would I want to show up differently? Because no matter if the other person was just horrible to you or not, or if it's just your own self-forgiveness, you have a part no matter what. And your part can just be that you didn't stand up for yourself, that you did nothing, that you didn't respect yourself. But these things matter. These are a part of it. If you find yourself in this situation again, oh, I see it happening. I'm conscious of this. This time I'm going to stand up for myself. This time I'm not going. Anything like that, but learning what that better behavior is for you. And really, I mean, the forgiveness is an inside job. Everything's an inside job. And that is like the best and hardest part of it, I'd say. And really, so much of this is simple, but doing it, getting started, is what's challenging. But I am telling you, so much of the peace in my life has come from being able to deeply understand this. And I didn't start doing it once I understood it. I started understanding it by just starting doing it, by writing it down, whatever that was, by being willing to actually look at it, even though it felt really awkward and embarrassing and uncomfortable at times, but doing it anyway, because I finally wanted to not feel the way I was feeling around resentments and things. I didn't think I'd have this much to say about it, but I did. Here we are. And if you've listened this long, thank you. Please consider subscribing to my channel. And if there's anything you want to talk about on this topic, please leave me a comment below, or any advice you might have to other people watching. And I will talk to you next time. Bye.